Guys and girls are doing well. I'm gonna cry. I just did the recording and realized my mic wasn't plugged in. So let's get to this. Let's just show some of the things I want to see. Some of these might make a little bit sense as we go on. Everything's on a cliff, so I guess I'll show that first before I show everything that I want to see. So I'm not going to go into all these, or I can just do it really quickly. But we'll just look at the averages, months all the way down there, weeks up top. See, we almost hit it, come turn around. And it just this is a horrible candle to have near the top also as well. That kind of resistance. Boom, boom, boom. So this is over everything. We can go to the NASDAQ or NDQ. And then, so we see weekday 12, or oops, sorry, weekday 4. So we're pretty much under everything also as well. And then just one last thing on the SPY. We can just go through this also as well. We can see this appear, day. So we're off a cliff on a lot of this stuff. I mean, we're pretty much off the cliff. Anything with Apple dropping and really severely falling is probably going to wreck most of this. Apple was the only really thing, in my opinion, that I can think of that diverged. Maybe Tesla. But I think Apple was the only thing that really gained. Well, Apple and Tesla, interesting. Tesla is maybe is now a value stock. Maybe Tesla is a value stock. But let's get to this in a sense, and let's kind of look at some of this. I don't really care about the 30 minutes, so let me switch off of this. So what I'd like to see tomorrow is I'm hoping, I don't really care about post and pre. I really care about where things start. So I only care about post and pre to the extent of where things start. So we didn't really have, okay, let's look at what we did last week real quick, just to understand why I'm looking at the fours. The days up here, the 2 hours here, the 1 hours here, they're pretty much all above most of them. We do have like a 30 under us if we look at this right here, but the only really decent time frame, sizable time frame that's around us is 4 hours. So I'd actually like to see us trend back up and actually test up here at 155. I think that would be really good. We also have a really strong fib level here at 155.57. And we can see on a shorter time frame looking at the 5-minute today what it did. So we did actually get a bounce here. And to me, there's a little bit of overselling. I think even some of this right now is overselling, but at the same time, I think it's reasonable selling. I don't know what people are trying to do. If they're trying to sell to trade or short, I don't know. I think that's kind of risky maybe, without waiting just to see. But at the same time, anyone that's just selling spot or they're just selling anything that they have, I think it's completely reasonable. Really, I do. I think it's incredibly reasonable. So we'll see where we start. All this shifts based on where we start or where pre-market is a little bit before where we open. Everything's off a cliff, so everything could be off a cliff completely when we open up. I'm just showing what I'd like to see and where I'm hoping that we don't get sold down too much so that there's nice entries, and that when it goes down, if it does go down, just goes down cleanly instead of in a bad way. So I don't really want to see a lot of like overselling, I guess. So I'd like to see it in this area anyway. I don't want to see it open too far down. I don't want to see it open anywhere here. I'd like to see it open somewhere in this area. I'd want to see it push up. Then we can see a nice clean rejection, maybe even pushing up to the fib line, a little bit of an extension. We have both the 4 hours here. It looks like it would get pooped on. We had a nice push up off of this. I'm not surprised that we get wrecked on it. We pushed all the way down here. I think we're overextended and we can push up. So I'd like to see that. And in the same sense, I do think the VIX is quite a bit higher than it is. If you haven't seen the other videos, we have the days and the weeks just to show them real quick. We can see like how important these things can be, and especially like starting above these things and decent places for it. So, and this kind of goes into what happened today. So for the VIX, I do expect that it probably will start somewhere in this area. I would like to see it trend back down, at least to the top of the day. I think then it can get a decent amount of strength to push up. And so that's one of the things I'd like to see alongside with Apple. Whoops, that's one of the things I'd like to see alongside with Apple. And that's one of the reasons why I'm hoping that we can get this push up. That'll pull the VIX back down. And then the VIX just comes back to support around the same time that Apple's around resistance. And then we can go boom and push through. I would like to see both of those together. I think that looks the cleanest. And we can just see what the VIX has been doing on some of these days. So like Friday was really weird because Friday, this is all we had. We didn't really have a strong cup, and we just started all the way up here, which is really, really weird. And then on Monday, we also started up here too, which was really, really weird. And that was where Apple was. Apple wanted to go up to test because it was oversold. Well, it goes up to test, but this is too high, of course. And then we push down to the week. We start the day here on next day here. There's nowhere to go down because we're at support. So we push up. We start up too high, and we can kind of see what we did today. So this is where we started today right here. and then we can see that we trended down. We could see that we're having a little bit of trouble. We hit the 1 hour, and then we hit the 2 hour down here. Boom. This is why we didn't push down. A lot of ugly stuff here on the 1 hour. We really got saved by the Fed stuff, or the VIX really got saved by the Fed stuff. But what we can see on the 4 is that when we were having this, or we can see on any of these time frames, but we actually got pushed all the way down. We just hit the week again. So I actually think, if this is one of the reasons why I was thinking, if things maybe, probably not, I don't see it ever happening, but maybe, I feel like in a sense, if we didn't have so much buying, like aggressive buying on sells, then, and just holding the price, I think the VIX would have been fine. The VIX was up here for like 1 second or something. It was literally 1 second or one tick up here, and then it shot back down. It was one tick at 30, and then it just immediately came back down to 27. It was really weird to see. Though we can kind of see why we'd be possibly moving up from this position, because we immediately got oversold, or the VIX came for whatever it is, it came all the way back down to support. So from that same perspective, I'd like to see it start somewhere here, trend back down, Appl come up, the market come up, the NASDAQ come up a little bit, just back to their resistance, and then I'd like to see it continue downwards, and I think that would be the cleanest break. Otherwise, it seems like maybe it might be a little bit of an overextension, something like that. It might give more of a reason for something like Appl to actually be able to hold in this area. So bulls for Appl, what they're going to want essentially is, because we have this kind of reversal, we have this overselling. This is what we had on Friday. This is why I just needed to not drop down so far. We got this trend, so we did start under. This is what I was saying with the VIX on Monday. We go up on Appl to test. The VIX is way too far up, so the VIX comes down, and once it starts coming under those days, it's under hard support, and that kind of keeps us pushing up. For that day, and then the next day it looked bad for a lot of stuff, and Appl is the only one that really diverged and kept going up. So anyway, if we just look at it from this perspective, bears or bulls for Appl really just want to maintain it in this area, and then we just start here, and then we have the ability to push up. We have this reversal sense of, we have 1 2, and what this would mean is not just a bounce here, but we'd also have low, higher low, higher low, and this looks pretty nice for what it is. So that is a possible thing that could happen. We'll really see what happens. Everything looks so bad, and we really look at Appl. The reason why I want it to come up is, this is just, for the rejection, and I just don't want to see it come down here too much. Everything looks bad, and so everything could just get sold down, and none of this stuff might matter just because of the environment that we're in right now. And I think that's it's like a 50-50, I think, at this point. But I just like to see patterns and things follow. But I don't want to see it strike this area because it looks weak. We hit it here, hit it here. We even got like a little bit of time here when we were pushing up, and it looks like the same thing. When we have this here, it's going to fall through. But for here, because we didn't do anything and we kept pushing on this, I don't think this is even going to stay here for like a quick second. Like there's no reason. Now, if we did do something here, I think because this pushes up to another level, this can bounce down here again and it would be fine. The reason I don't like this is because we don't really enter a different area. We just come right back to it. So I don't, that's kind of my thinking, my thought process on these things, is that the reason why I think this is going to come through is we just haven't built any reason, any support around here. We just kind of gave and go. We haven't given any credence to this being actual support on the way up. So I don't see why it would be support on the way down, really. So, but at the end of the day, it might not matter. We might wreck through all these things. We have to see. Post market, it being 153.08 literally means nothing to me at all. The only thing that matters to me is about an hour, honestly, or 30 minutes before pre-market. That's really it. And usually only the 15 minutes before pre-market, because a lot can happen. Manipulation. Oh, I need to turn my volume down. I just got an alert and it was really loud. So that's kind of that. Let's go over Bitcoin. Jeez, I'm glad my headphones are plugged in now, even though my ears hurt. Let's go to Bitcoin. I don't think I've gone over Bitcoin yet. Like I said, I didn't have the microphone plugged in for the last video, so it feels like I went over this already. So anyway, some of the issues I have with this also are an overextension. Just looking at this, Bitcoin's really in an SOS area. So if anyone's interested, I'll put it in here. I'll put the link to the idea in here, but I want to show, let me see, pause and I'll find it real quick. Okay, so let's do this, and we can just show these, make sure it's going. Okay, so we can just show these two quick. So we can just kind of look at both of these side by side, and we'll see. So if you haven't, you can always check this one out. I'll put a link to this, and we can just see essentially what's been going on. And I think it's a little bit easier to express it this way. So we're just bouncing through, and we'll see on the week time frame. This is actually a week hit. This is a week hit. But the main point is that when we go down, we'll see what happens. So it's not just, oh, we're at the top of the channel. We fall, we bounce a little bit, fall under the like the top of this channel that we enter, and we don't get back into it. And then we do the same thing. So the kind of thinking and somewhat of a concern is if we do come in here, will we bounce here, or are we going to do the same thing at the end of the day? We're under the channel. And we can kind of see also on the week time frame, it's not as specific, but if we look at this, it's not as, there's not as many details. But we can also see the same thing, right? So this was that 4 hour. We see the week hit here, and we turn back around. So it's that same general kind of concept. I wonder if we're actually going to hit anything in these areas. So right here, it's 10.7. So the week shows 10.7 possibly as a hit. I believe the day is somewhere around 11,200, 11,300. So we could be coming down to we could be coming down to 11,200 to 11,300. If we do end up coming down. I mean, everything looks pretty bad for what it is, right? This is our channel that we're pretty much in, and it doesn't look good. So we have our general kind of thing here. If we don't have any crazy trend, we usually have a lot of bearish pressure here when we fall under like this. And this is exactly what I'm looking for to happen all the way here. And I'm expecting that we'll see that happening all the way here, and this will signal us going down. So in the same sense that I think a lot of these are pretty bad because they start under, and I don't expect them to just shoot up really almost ever. And if they do, I don't like them. Like this, for example, I think this was incredibly weak. Am I on the right side again? Yep. Okay, 1 second. And just because they're incredibly weak, and we can just kind of see here in a sense, and I'll do this 1 second. Oh, there we go. So we can just kind of see what this trend line is. It's just an average that I have going through this. So you can just kind of see this looks pretty decent. I really like it for what it is. So anyway, let me bring the shift pitchfork back up. So what we can see here is there's no real surprise that we got sold down here. I think more than anything, I was surprised that this actually came up before like shot down, which was a little interesting. But this wasn't too surprising. Like we called this here. You can always check the September, I think September 8th video or whatnot. We expected it to come back up here and at least test. And if it pushed up, what I wanted to see was it come down for support. So the same thing, we didn't come down for support. I'm not surprised that we're breaking right down through it. Regardless of how high we come up, we didn't show that this was support when we were going up. So whenever we come back down to it, we still have nothing. And so this is kind of the same thing that applies to Appl on the 4 hour that I was showing with the 4 hour 500, the red line. So what we can see here, essentially, this is our range. We can see this. This is the week time frame. Let me just show BLX. It feels really weird because I just talked to this. I just said this. If you make videos, always make sure that make sure you're not muted. I'm double checking. And always actually, if you ever make a video, test and then just stop, take a 10-second and test and then stop and make sure. But we can see here 2015, boom, 2020, 2022. And so my kind of concern here is like we hit these and we're coming, like we just hit this for support. We did all this and now we're coming back down to it. So for me, I think it looks a lot worse if we end under it because we have no data showing a week starting under it, ending, starting more specifically. Things can start here and end here. So starting is the specific thing. If I ever say end, I mean start. So that's something that we have here, and we can also just see it on the other one. We just don't have enough data on any of the other ones to actually show the 2015 bounce also as well. So it reminds me a little bit of the Hang Seng Index and what we might see with what it had. Not enough data to see here, but it should have hit or very, very close. We can see this and then here. So the same thing, no long-term averages below the month 200. We can see a little ugliness here. You could actually see this on the short time frame. I believe it was the week fall under. So these aren't necessarily just lines. Like this is that representation. This is where that month started. So we can see we actually came down here. We ended above, started next week under, boom, boom, right? Ugly, ugly, ugly. So we can see that these aren't just lines. A lot of times they will represent something. So this kind of gives me the same concern also with the Hang Seng, which is practically off a cliff, but it's not there yet. Same thing as Bitcoin. So I feel like this month 200 reminds me a little bit of Bitcoin in regards to that week time frame, smooth moving average or SMMA. So ultimately, I want to see what this did here with this fall under, and then just expect it to find resistance. But I'd like to see that here, and I expect if we do see something like that here, eventually we will then push down, and that I think that's going to be the ultimate short point. We'll see. It could just like rip through all this stuff, but I would imagine it would do something in that manner since we do have these relatively large time frames here, and we can see that it works pretty well for them. So we see we ride it, fall under. Obviously, if we're looking for that, it makes sense that why would you short in this last part, right? Because you're not looking to short and push it down under. The objective is to take something from that weak position and then enter and increase that weak position. Not like these are all relatively strong positions because people are taking profits on their shorts and getting out of it, right? From that kind of perspective when we look at it. Now, there's probably people looking at all different types of things. I think at the end of the day, the point of these whole moving averages on these specific time frames is that they're great representations of other things. It's not just, oh, this line's here. If you draw a horizontal line array, you'll see that there's a lot of other stuff there as well. So I think we talked about the market. I think we talked about Bitcoin. We talked about this. This is that week time frame. I think because we did bounce, we're a lot more. We bounced at 17.8 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I do think we're more likely to come under here and then find some sort of resistance and push down. We'll have to see what the market is. Bitcoin's driven with a lot of the market, but what can we say at least? SOS don't want to be in here. Very sketchy, or very sketchy anyway. And SOS is down here. SOS is starting any time frame, very close to this day hole. Now, if something does push for me, it could just drop through. But I am sometimes weary if something pushes down here and ends the day here. I like to see that rejection. So a lot of times, what I expect and what makes a lot of sense is I consider this something oversold and it'll come back up to test. Now everything looks horrible, so we might not see that. I don't know if it's going to be another well, technically that doesn't exist either, but I don't know if it's going to be. I never looked at this short term because I wasn't looking at things here. But what is this? May 5th. So one second, let me check this. Okay, let's do May 5th, and let's see. Okay, so the line was here. Yeah, so I mean, it could be something that just rips through, and we don't really see anything like that. It's a little bit different because this is just like one of the main levels, but just as we rip down. So we could just see something. I mean, obviously that was, we had the Do Kwon and all the other kind of stuff happening around here. So that was that. And then we could also see up here, this was like around April 6th, the market made a reversal. I kept saying for the longest time, I thought this was a great entry point, and I still think it was. And I think that's why we had so much pressure as we started failing here and then pushing on down. I think great entry points are always marked by big drops if it reverses. I mean, I think that's what you generally want to see, right? A place to take a position where there's relatively low risk, but if you have to flip your position or if you have to get out, you can get out and you can flip, it'll go in the other direction. I think that's it's not just minimizing loss, it's minimizing losses in a sense, whether that's not losing a lot or getting a no loss trade and then being able to continue in the other direction. You don't want to get out of something, right? You don't want to get out of something and then just, or like get into something and then get out of it and have it just go back up, right? I think that's kind of clear. So that's what we're looking for there. A little bit of SOS for Ethereum here. We did hit here, looks pretty ugly, obviously got dragged down with the market. The reason I'm not looking to Ethereum to USD because I really don't care. Ethereum to Bitcoin is where a lot of this value has come from, and it's where it's going to lose a lot of value if something really bad happens. So even from here, it looks really sketchy. We can see on these day time frames right here that we're kind of coming under, and we also have something on the 12. So for this also, I still would like to see something come back up. So maybe we see something come back up to 70. We don't really see a hard break here, even though everything that happened. So I would like it if it could hold here and try to push back up. I wouldn't hate that. Overall, it looks really bad. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I think it had a chance here on the merge, but we had the 4.2s. It just really got wrecked, just coinciding here with the merge. So it's just really upsetting that it couldn't get past this. But it kind of is what it is, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't really care. So like I'm not gonna buy something and hodl something. It doesn't matter. I guess gold. Oh, let's not talk about gold. Gold just looks sketchy. It's probably going to get wrecked. It's under its month time frame, and we have a week that started under it. So if we have anything that continues in the direction we're going, this is going to get wrecked. And we only have like one more trading week for the month, and that'll look really bad if it starts under. So let's just go to USD WTI for oil at the end of the day. What we're looking for oil is what we can see if we go here on the right side. So we can see what it's done with the daytime frame 200. We should have came down in some of these areas here and touched it, but we didn't. So what we can see is that we have the month, week, month, but we have a lot of stuff under us. So what I want to do, and I think is the safest thing, is to actually wait for it to come down, wait for it to actually come back up and show support on this date 200, and then take a position there as opposed to this. Because if we have something that comes under here, this could just get wrecked down. All right, take care, guys. I'll see you tomorrow at 9:15 to 4:15, the whole market day. Peace.